Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Chandler, and I'm representing the Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery, where I'm currently the TD Curator of Education Fellow. This is the Power Plant's 10th year working with Art Toronto, and we are once again pleased to present you with our Power Talk series at the fair this year. I hope you had a chance to attend the engaging and insightful talks provided by Fauzi Cabra and Carla Fernandez earlier this weekend. Before we begin, I would like to thank Susanna Rosenstock from Art Toronto and the whole Art Toronto team for all their help in putting together this series. They've been very helpful and everything's been a breeze. The Power Plant, located at Harbourfront Centre, just down the street from Art Toronto, focuses on presenting the best contemporary art from Canadian and international artists. We have just opened our fall 2016 shows featuring exhibitions by Ito Barada and Maria Laboda, as well as a site-specific commission by Latifa Eshaksh, which will be on view through May 2017. As always, admission to the gallery is free, so we encourage you to come by and see these wonderful shows. Like I said, we're just down the street from Art Toronto, so if you have any time to come by, we'd be happy to have you. I would also be remiss not to mention that the Power Plant is also participating in Edition Toronto downstairs, where we are offering a variety of publications and exclusive limited edition artworks with reduced prices for Power Plant members. I don't know if you've seen anybody walking around with the dolls. Those have been very popular this weekend. Today we are presenting our final Power Talk for the weekend with Diego Bianchi and his talk entitled Impurity. Diego is an Argentinian artist who creates installations from detritus and collected objects. He studied at Buenos Aires University, where he received the Guillermo Cuita grant. His work has been shown around the world, including the United States, Mexico, France, and the 10th Havana Biennale and 11th Lyon Biennale. After the talk, we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, please stick around. But otherwise, please help me in welcoming our final Power Talk speaker to the stage, Diego Bianchi.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. I am very happy to stay here. Very nervous at the same time. Many thanks to Power Plant to invite me. I am very happy to stay here and to share my ideas with you. Be patient because it will be a barrage of images. I'm going to read because my English is a disaster. I need to read. I have never studied art formally. I now think that for years I have been trying to define and redefine what art is for me. I started to involve myself in art practice after 10 years as a graphic designer, when I realized that art was a more fertile and propitious ground to develop my sensibility and a better way to understand the world. I had a very long period of observation during the years after the 2021 crisis in Argentina, when the bubble we live in surprisingly exploded. Understanding this circumstance was decisive and generated a radical change in my view. During those years, I made a large photographic record of casual urban events. They seemed to sprout everywhere in a hard Buenos Aires and also in other cities. I found great poetic, narrative, and formal possibilities within these findings. Breaks in continuum that were generally random, like accidents, widespread wits, urgent actions, the passing of time, etc., etc. For me, they were disruption in the structure of reality, but they weren't deliberately poetic nor formal beforehand. When I speak of observation, I'm referring to an active observation that redefines and modifies what is observed. In that moment, the small digital cameras of the beginning of the century were a literal extension of my body and my eyes, as well as accompanying me in all my activities and my long walks in the streets day and night. I feel now that during those years I equipped myself unconsciously with tools, sensibilities, and procedures. I became especially sensitive for the fine signs. I absorb and identify myself fully with a sort of savage, poetic, and stylistic impurity. I empathize with precariousness, fragility, relativity, imperfection, since from the low, urgent, insignificant, and underdeveloped, becoming in the main axis of my work. At the time, I didn't possess any technical knowledge or specific ability, so every chance to exhibit was also an opportunity to learn how to do things. But I always believed in a basic function of art, which the Argentinian writer Cesar Aira summarized in this fragment of an essay. I will try to read. Art is still the best field for practice and experimentation for the old intelligence that which imposed the objective to know how things worked and how the world worked. And in reality, not so much pedagogical, but as a practice and a training, or even better, preservation. Indeed, the execution of art is the only social consensus in which a piece of knowledge can be developed that in other fields is in an accelerated process of extinction. This is because of the inherent radicalness of art, its capacity to take apart the language with which it operates as a whole and put it back together following other premise. If it doesn't fall back to the starting point, it isn't art, even if it seems as though it is. A true artist knows this even in an intuitive way, and does it every time he starts to work. The artist in our society is the only common citizen, non-financed by power, that works with a sophisticated and actual matter that is not a black box. That is to say that it can be taken apart and put back together wholly. He's the only who uses a type of intelligence that is becoming atrophied in the rest of society. As to the use of artistic formats that widespread culture does, for example, music or cinema, it has to be said that it caves miserably to the black box logic. You press a button, that is, you use an artistic language blindly without disarticulating it previously, and you await a result, and that is not anything else but sales and success. Everyone who has seeked success knows that by definition it is a mysterious and unpredictable process out of our sight, within the black box. This is Cesar Aira. When I receive a new invitation, I feel apprehensiveness, fear, and even terror. But I also feel that I have to get through the experience and get to know the exceptional points to each specific situation can yield. I live every project as an absolute adventure that removes me from my common life. I understood that taking action toward what frightens me is the best thing I can do. I'm interested in working with ideas, with the problems that they entail, and the ideas that these problems generate when I try to resolve them. Ideas are important to me not because of the idea themselves, but because they generate more ideas and because they produce action. But to put an idea in practice is a hard work. In my experience, ideas generally fail. That is to say, they do not deliver with the certainty and efficiency they seem to propose. I believe this is the best, worst moment of my work, or the worst, best moment. When I have to change plans, when I lose control of the situation, when my capacity is provoked to save me from a defeating defeat. I learn to do through unrest and to accept mistakes. Mistakes condensed through, they are factual, and when you try to correct then you take the risk to sterilize your work. Things that go wrong give me the argument to act. They force me to redeem them. Generally, I set aside many things, I transfigure them, reuse them. My studio is far from a factory. It is a battlefield, a massacre, a place of absolute instability. Losing control can be distressing, but at the same time, I find it's highly positive. I live as a trying experience that tends to rip me from myself. The form is freed from previous extensions, and you can find specific and unexpected solutions, even for who is manipulating them. I believe that what is possible arises from encounters, but not with those which are wanted and programmed. The contingency of an unexpected encounter is what triggered thought. The best moment is that in which I am a tool, a channel, and I can think without words, when I can relegate my own intentions, fears, and prejudice. I consider that if a work accomplishes containing a vision, then it is eternal, because it captures a moment of intensity. For me, making a sculpture is like taking a picture. Each work is an oracle and must be a discovery. It interprets what does not yet make sense. As to the works I am showing especially here, there are kind of examples of this kind of work, kind of process. I must say that in my first years, I tried my own authorial absence. That is to say, I aimed to make the elements act by their own accord and to follow the logic of accidents, catastrophe, and uncontrollable eruptions aesthetically. Common things acting with weird behaviors, common things suffering bizarre rituals, mistreatments, wickedness, savagery, aberrations. I understood that generating entropic situations had nothing to do with working chaotically. By the contrary, it demanded a precise construction of chaos, populated by hundreds of details, connections, and finesse, a framework of relationships that was chaos for me. I could define myself as a surrealistic, hyperrealistic, a kind of Creole surrealism. I tried to utilize abundant day-to-day elements, non-sophisticated, with not aesthetic value, so present they became almost invisible. I aimed to always be situated very close to reality. How much reality does fiction bear is a question that motivates me permanently. What would happen if the cleaning person and the electrician had fought themselves for a dominance of a space, and the object of the room had acted of their own accord? How would it be freeze a tornado within a gallery? What would its aesthetic mark be on the walls and furniture of the gallery? Is it possible to induce a disaster or a flood with feng shui fountains? Or what would happen is recollect leftover of junk food and work ominously on them? Or is the gigantic island of plastic we produce constitute itself in our habits? Can you interpret cleaning and hygiene products as action of fascism? How can you erect a beautiful collapse inhabited by beautiful people dressed for a party? Installation were my natural language, where I could unfold ideas simultaneously. generate parameters and my own laws, submerge the spectator in a magma of situations. When I think something, I try to think the opposite. The shapes, the form that are not, is an exhibition that I made in 2008. Was my first solid show of sculptures. I worked in a primitive and visceral way with plaster, iron, glass, cooked dough, flour, water, earth, etc. All kind of rawness and protuberance, without discarding any of the tests I had done during the 2 months, despite how horrible they were. During the opening, I lay down on a platform with a hole in the middle. It's suspended from the ceiling in the middle of the room, and I put my ass on the hole over all these sculptures I had made. I tried to overcome the mental character with the creative capacity of the anus. After that, the human body and its parts were fundamental in my work. In a spiritual exercise, 2 dancers made a body dialogue with their hands surrounded by sculptures that refer to the body as an object with the capacity to be affected in multiple ways. My ideas were connected with the analysis of behaviors, appearance, education of the soul through the education of bodies, the regulation, control and violence against bodies. While before I thought of animism and personality of object, now I invert the situation, and the body was thought as an element equal to objects and even functional with them, a body with elongations, prostheses, but at the same time depending on objects. I want to wait a little because the image are slower than me. Bodies are adaptable to the parameters of the time. The body is molded. Some of the order of happiness is put at stake there. An appearance becomes an element to achieve a better life. The obsession to train was the trigger for this work in collaboration with the work in collaboration with Luis Garay, this called Under the Sea. Luis Garay is a friend and a dancer director, for which we worked 2 months or 3 months in collaboration with dozens of volunteers, and we did a work that we don't know quite well how to define. It's theatrical performance or performative installation. This work was repeated in different places, first in the city of La Plata, in an experimental part of the theater, then in Poland, in the Vienna Festival, and in Buenos Aires. The performance lasts 1 hour. All the performative situation develop on a loop, and it is extremely demanding for all the performers. The audience can sit on the orchestra or enter the stage and look around the situation or smoke inside an acrylic box. It will be very far. The lights vary and underline the different situations. The music was composed with Argentinian musician Ismael Pinkler, with fragments of intros of pop songs like Britney Spears, Madonna, Michael Jackson. And this presentation of analysis is summarized in a video of 7 minutes. I was always interested in working towards the spectator bodies, that is to say, that to mobilize their sensory system. The spectator is also a protagonist. It's about bothering and forcing him to partly become a co-author, to demand physically, intellectually, and morally, to change settings and influence in his predisposition to observe. Being the audience, it's not free. For example, in Minimalist Imperialism is an exhibition that I made in Buenos Aires in 2006. The access to the gallery is in the first floor. I think I covered the step with a big wooden ramp that the public has to climb and then go up 2 steps more. Once inside, dozens of situations unfolded baroquely, overlapping and invoking minimalism. Or in Rules and Conditions, where the small room of the gallery was reduced even further in a space where you could only move on all fours, and the second part demanding access by removing a piece of clothing, shirt or pants, and becoming exposed on a window of the gallery, which is on the first floor of a grand avenue of Buenos Aires. I believe that the work of art is a reflection of its surrounding. This video is the suspension of disbelief. Yes. This was the second time that I did this work. The first time was in Arco in solo project. At this time, the work was only 3 hours each day for only 4 days. But here the curators suggest that it has to work 8 hours diarily. We found 5 performers, and they interchanged the activity during the 8 hours. I believe that the work of art is a reflection of... Start again? No, please. Next. This was the first time that we record this performance. After that, we repeat, as I said, in 3 different places. Each time we are completing the scene with more actions and more details. I believe that the work of art is a reflection of its surrounding. It is an incomplete act of communication. This is why I am so interested in working with exceptional narrative circumstance that surrounding the work of art. I need to create spaces plagued with reference more than white cubes that reinforce their unicity, where the works are filled with what happened around them, where the object became completely relative. This is the other work that I told before, that the people have to enter it and to remove part of the clothes. And this is one of the last work that I made in Buenos Aires this year. I divide the space of the gallery into large triangles, one area with the clear reference to exteriority with police and pharmacy lights, and the other side a kind of oniric interiority, which was illuminated thanks to movement sensors and TVs completely abstracted. Never you could see entirely the situation, always a fraction. Just in order to think about through as a double face, as a double face through. To go from one side to another, people had to drag themselves under a semi-transparent fence. It was a very, very small door hiding in the end of the gallery, just for people, old people or disadvantaged people. During my classes and workshops, I generate a system which I call anti-project, in which I make a special emphasis in training amplify observation of the present and to work in improvisations. But even so, I set out according to instructions that hire people out of their habitual habits and perceptions and put them in slightly uncomfortable situations to stay or transit on the city. For example, going down the street with a drawing on the face, close something from your bed, transporting an image on the body, cross-dressing, etc. Training extravagance as an antidote towards the normalization of the world. I believe that to move away from what is evident, you have to destabilize what is existent, and the first destabilization of an artist must be of himself. I am interested in thinking about identity as a great fiction, completely modifiable. We are accustomed to obey, to bear the small humiliation that modern life imposes on us, to restrict our space of liberty, to restrict our possibilities of affection and encounter. I like to play with this idea. I believe that art can revert the tendencies toward hyper-control. If a political issue exists in art for me, it is that it must demand, must demand for more space to protect and encourage freedom of experimentation when confronted with the prospect of hyper-professionalization. It is important to generate a space of liberty, of allowance, to be able to dismantle the fear of the unknown and what is different. To understand that human potency, human capacity is activated when in contact with the other, with the unknown. This is all.
Okay, everyone, if you have any questions, just please raise your hand and I can bring the microphone to you, and then you can ask Diego.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. For your theatrical pieces, how much of it is choreographed, and
I don't listen, sorry.
how much is the actions or the performances? How much are they choreographed? What are you describing and telling the?
In this case of the theatrical piece you are talking,
Yeah.
it's a 1 hour of duration. We try several situations, different, and finally we find a specific situation for each performer. And it's 1 hour of intense body work. Yes, it's choreographed. It's an improvisation, and at the same time it has to be real, because the force is very, very real, and they don't have to act. They have to stay and support the situation that they have to run. It's not improvisation. They know how to. It's a very simple action. They have to repeat in a very intense way, most intense that they can do it.
And how do you find this?
We find people in different places. We make a very, very nice casting, because we are asking for example, blonde and red-haired people for the accident. And we are looking for Oriental people for other situations. We make a long casting by every way, within Facebook and every place. And some of them are specific performers, like the pool dancer, because he's very specialist to fall on the floor, because she knows very good this technique, and she like to fall on the floor, and she have to repeat several times during the performance. It's very impressive, because the first time that you see it look like very, very bad, but she knows how to do it. And the other man, that is a kind of transformist that work with a hand, with a arm that came from behind him. He's a very plastic man, and he's a kind of improvisation, and he has to dialogue with the other arm that came from behind. And the people that is showing the telephone, the image in the telephone, has to show only the pictures, like an album of pictures. Some of them are photographers, and show all their catalogs in the phones during the exhibition. And we are looking for tattoo legs or special tattoo people.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
Diego, we were lucky enough with Jane to visit your studio in November, and I think that kind of chaos you describe is very much reflected in your studio. Now you're talking and you're saying we all the time. What does that mean? You have a team of people working with you? ¿Tienes un equipo de gente trabajando para ti?
No, depending of the project, I work with always with one assistant. In the moment of the exhibition, I find more people to work, maybe one more or two more, depending of how big is the thing that I have to do. But in the case of the theatrical piece, we need we work with a lot of people, the producers, musicians, and different persons.
Thank you.
Diego, if an institution invites you for an exhibition, do you spend time in the city? Is your work a reflection of the surroundings specific to the place you are, or is it, the continuous work of what you've done in Buenos Aires?
No, for me, it's very interesting to. You listen. It's very interesting to connect with the place. The first ideas came from the place directly. After that, from the city, from the surroundings of the place. It's very interesting for me to work listening and reading around the space that are going to show something. For example, in the exhibition in PAM, in the Museum of Miami, I was several times in the place, and I was collecting all the stuff around the museum and in different places, and I put all the objects in the outside to ruin the object with the sun of the place, with the wind, because the condition, the ambient conditions are very, very hard in this city, and I need to work with this condition in the work. And I modify the space also, the windows, everything. More things that I can do specifically, more I like it.
Just wanted to elaborate on Suzanne's question for you about the performers in your in the theater performance. You were saying that you had a call for actors with particular abilities. So, for example, the pole dancer.
I don't listen. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious about how you choreographed which actors for which types of actions in the performance. I'm a little bit curious about that because you said, for example, some are defined by the action they can perform, and then some are defined by what they look like or a racial description. Can you elaborate on why or how you choose which actors for what parts?
We had a list of ideas that we want to do, but after that, when the people was in the studio, we start to test the situations, and we have to modify to understand what the people can do, what the people need to do. We find a specific situation for each person. Sounds for you? No.
I guess I'm interested in maybe perhaps the gender or racial distinction, like perhaps racial or gender distinction.
Yes, no, I'm trying to remember how. Yes, it was very similar to a film or to a movie. We need some special characters because the idea is the first idea connect with this situation. Less like a casting, a special casting. but you need like a publicity. You need a special physical body for a specific situation. Mm,
So you put a call to
yes,
through Facebook
yes,
and you cast people.
yes,
Not what you need.
as this.
They're not your friends.
No, no, any of them. After that, yeah, we are friends because we really work hard with them. Was a kind of workshop with the performers also, because we are working for hours with each situation, trying to understand what we are doing together. Like, for example, there are 4 people around an ice cream, lemon ice cream. They were actors for theater, and they have to work with their faces in response with the ice cream that they have in front. But before this, we have to try to test with different elements and different situations that only act with your face in an extremely way, like the face, like molder clay. And it was really hard for them because they are regular actors for theater. They don't use the face as this.
Once more, thank you, Diego.
No, you're welcome.